today was so mature and measured from Kimi Antonelli that I think he turned yet another corner.
This is, you feel the beginning of a Kimi Antonelli era.
Are we being robbed slightly of a true comparison given the issues that are going on with George?
Second in the championship, makes contact with third in the championship, and Russell is in the gravel.
We're watching in real time a lifelong childhood dream slowly moving further and further away from him.
The winner of the Belgian Grand Prix is joining us now in the Mercedes motorhome.
Charles, at the end of the race, he came to me and was like, were you also quicker when you were behind me? I was like, yeah, I mean, it was a bit easier for sure.
Nice toe from Isaac Hadjar. It's a little bit like doing the washing up that. You want to do it well, but you don't want to do it that well.
Welcome everyone to F1 Nation's review of the Belgian Grand Prix. I'm Tom Clarkson, and joining me in the paddock here at Spa-Francorchamps is the dynamic duo from F1 TV, lead presenter Laura Winter and two-time Le Mans podium finisher Alex Brundle. Very warm welcome to you both. Headlines, please, after that Grand Prix.
Well, thank you so much for having us. And my goodness, headlines are, well, firstly, Kimi Antonelli does it again. Win number 6, pole number 6. He staved off the pressure from Charles Leclerc behind him. We asked before, were track limits going to be one of his biggest nemesis today? He got 2 strikes, no more. He kept it within the white lines after that. Reliability on his side today. He's extended his lead to 45 points over Lewis, 50 points over his teammate George Russell. He is the winner of the day.
I think for me it's very measured victory from Kimi Antonelli. He did what he needed to do in all circumstances, but it's a demonstration of how impressive he is in that Mercedes car that actually, even with a much cheaper pit stop for both Ferraris, despite Hamilton's issues and everybody else challenging him, he still had the full race in hand, and you could see that from behind the steering wheel. My question is, what would have happened if Verstappen had got a free stop instead of Leclerc?
I have 2 more questions. What would have happened if George hadn't been punted out the race in lap 1, and what would have happened if Lando Norris had started P3?
That's the magic of Formula One right there, folks. But what a difference. Let's talk about Kimi Antonelli a little bit more, and what a difference 12 months makes. Let's cast our minds back to the Belgian Grand Prix last year. Qualifies 19th for the Sunday race. It was a sprint weekend, but qualifies 19th, finishes 16th. It was a massive struggle. Fast forward to this weekend, and he's the dominant guy. I appreciate he's got a very brilliant racing car, but there's more to it, Alex, isn't there?
We talk a lot in this sport about diminishing returns, and I think when you look at a driver who came into Formula One relatively recently, he's still on the sharp upward trajectory of his understanding of how to deliver race victories and how to get the most out of the car. He's always been quick. He was quick the first time he jumped in a Formula One car in Monza, all the way through the first 2 sectors till he ended up in the barrier in the third. And wasn't that indicative of the road he needed to travel to actually convert all of that natural pace and natural ability into the almost complete driver that he's become with fantastic machinery underneath him? Today was so mature, I've said it already, so mature and measured from Kimi Antonelli that I think he turned yet another corner in his pursuit of the World Championship.
I think that came off the back of a very mature performance in the sprint race at Silverstone, where he was really patient in when he overtook Lewis Hamilton, and then his response, because let's not forget, he's had 2 DNFs in the last 3 races before this weekend. He's 19 years old. That's surely got to get into your head, especially when, as you said, Tom, you look back 12 months and go, oh no, is this the beginning of an unravelling here? Because I think once we saw Kimi going on a run this year, we thought, well, eventually, surely the wheels will come off at some point, because he's so young, because he's on this very sharp upward trajectory, which is quite frightening for the rest of the paddock if he is on this upward trajectory and this is already his level. But it's just not unravelling for him in any sense, and he's got such a mature head on his shoulders. And I think that horrible period he had last year, 3 points in 9 races, a number of DNFs through the European period, not least poor performances both in Italy as well, which will have really hurt him. That, I think, has done wonders for who he is now, the driver we see today, and also the way Mercedes have not wrapped him in cotton wool, but nurtured him from the minute he stepped into the paddock as a rookie in Australia last year to now. They have pushed him where they needed to. They have protected him when they needed to. And I think we're seeing the sum of that work now.
The winner of the Belgian Grand Prix is joining us now in the Mercedes motorhome. Kimi, that looked amazing. Just how good do you feel now? What are we, 2 hours after the end of the race? Are you still on a high?
I'm very happy, very satisfied with the win. Was a hard-fought one, not straightforward at all. And this weekend we brought package, lower downforce package. We tried it in FP1. We were scratching a little bit our heads after FP1. We came back slightly, not fully. We changed, obviously we came back on rear wing, but the other bits were still on the new package, and it worked nicely. It was a good combination, and the team did a great job on that, and it was a good race.
I know they were fortuitous with the timing of the VSC, but how surprised were you perhaps with the pace of Charles Leclerc, certainly in the Ferrari? How wary are you of them going forward to Hungary, where we're expecting them to be that bit closer again?
Yeah, for sure. We knew their long run would have been, their long run was strong already in FP1, FP2. They were strong. They lacked obviously a bit more in single lap, but in the long run they were there. So we expected them to be up there. Then of course with the VSC and everything, it meant that it was close. It was not easy at all, also because the toe was very strong. So when I went ahead, it was hard to break away, and then also a lot of deployment differences between me and Ferrari. So we had to make quite a few switch changes in order to try and break away from the overtake.
When you had made the move, we thought you'd disappear off up the road from Charles. Is that just because the overtake was really strong, or was that you managing the car to the end of the race?
No, I mean the overtake was very strong, plus the toe was very powerful. Going into turn 18 with the headwind, you could feel it massively, especially with, you were spending quite a lot of time with the wings closed, so it was very powerful there, the toe. So it was a mix of things. That's why also Charles, at the end of the race, he came to me and I was like, were you also quicker when you were behind me? I was like, yeah, I mean, it was a bit easier for sure. Also because these cars, at least for now, it's quite easy to follow. So you don't lose so much in corners. Definitely you don't lose as much as last year. It's much easier to follow. Tire suffers a bit less from it, so it just allows you to stay closer.
Kimi, it's been an amazing day. Who's the most famous Italian now? You or Yannick Sinner, by the way?
I don't know. I still think Charles Leclerc is the most famous one, along with Lewis Hamilton. Yeah.
Oh man! Well, look, thank you so much for coming and joining us. An amazing day. Really, really well done from all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Kimi. Well done.
He's so cool now.
Just think of effortlessly, isn't he?
So he missed out on the VSC again here, like he did in Austria. Yet no ranting on the radio. I even asked him about it in the press conference afterwards, and he just said, "Well, some you win, some you lose. I got lucky in Japan with the safety car, and okay, I missed out here." It's kind of so balanced, so measured. You say I think, Alex, did you say earlier, he's almost the complete package? I think there's a very strong argument to say he's already there.
Potentially so, although there are still some moments. I would point, for example, at the yellow flag issue back at the Austrian Grand Prix, where George read the situation perfectly. Sometimes off the start, there are a few starts where he doesn't manage the situation perfectly. Don't get me wrong, outside Formula One, in the grand scheme of motorsport, you're talking about a brilliant, complete competitor driving against 21 other brilliant, complete competitors. But in the level of Formula One, he's still relatively early in his career, which should be terrifying for everyone else, shouldn't it? Are we being robbed slightly of a true comparison, given the issues that are going on across the garage with George? Maybe. But I think that that is helping with Kimi Antonelli's confidence and the calmness that you relate to, Tom. I mean, in comparison, for example, to Lando Norris, who painted the radio channels blue when the VSC didn't fall into his pit window. You know, it's really interesting to hear that mindset and an idea of how comfortable he is within the team.
Last time I was on the pod, you were asking, is he a generational talent? Is he a generational driver? I think we all sort of unanimously said, yes, I think he is actually. I think we can now quite more vehemently say, yeah, you feel the beginning of a Kimi Antonelli era. The one thing I'd say today is he very nearly absolutely punted it into the pit wall, didn't he? The pit lane wall. And that could have been really quite costly. But he didn't, so
but
there you go.
Exactly what
That's the
I was
point,
going
right?
to say. That's the point. And even actually that run down to Eau Rouge on lap 1, where he had, Max gave it a whole load of extra boost going down the hill, and Kimi got out of it in time, didn't fight it.
Yeah, I mean, those moments are easier to manage when you know you're going to be 3/10 quicker for the rest of the Grand Prix. And so in a way that the speed is everything, particularly at a circuit like this, particularly at a circuit like Silverstone. If that moment happened into turn 3 in Hungaroring, when you know you're not going to be able to pass the guy for another 30 laps, then it might have been a bit of a different story. So in many ways, not to detract at all from, the brilliance of a 19-year-old racing driver who can keep his head down to Eau Rouge with crowd leaning over the track, waiting for this magic moment in a dominant Formula One car. But having a car which can deliver dominant pace at will certainly helps, doesn't it?
I'll make one final point on it as well. I think Kimi Antonelli is so ably supported by Bono on the radio. The calmness with which Bono delivers, okay, that's 2 track limits, we don't want any more. I think that partnership is one that has grown, is growing, and I think the level-headedness we see in the car is reflected from what we get from the pit wall as well.
So much trust between those two already, so early on in their relationship.
Russell and Lewis Hamilton make contact. Second in the championship, makes contact with third in the championship, and Russell is in the gravel. A massive moment in the World Championship. George Russell struggling for speed all weekend, but it's contact coming out of Les Combes, and he is mired in the gravel on the first lap of 44. Huge implications for the World Championship because his teammate got back the lead.
Let's explore what Alex was saying earlier about, are we being robbed of one of those brilliant championship battles because of what's going on the other side of the garage? Let's start with just on-track lap 1 here at Spa today. Russell didn't finish the race after contact with Hamilton on lap 1, and here's his take on what happened.
Well, it all started from the build-up. I came out of turn 1. For whatever reason, I was 30 to 40% down on my battery, and I just got totally swamped up by 3 cars. Incident with Lewis, I've not really seen it. I thought probably a racing incident, but I'm not going to blame Lewis. If things were normal, I wouldn't have been even battling with Lewis. I'd have been battling with Kimi and Max ahead.
You touched on the frustrations yesterday that you're feeling. Where do you go from here, George?
Yeah, it's one thing after another. Not good enough on all regards. So try and reset again. Done it enough times this season and see what we can do.
Right, racing driver's view first of all. Is there anything more George could have done to avoid that contact with Hamilton? Obviously he could have gone left a bit more, but do you think he left him enough room?
I think that George is trying to open up the second apex, which is he's entirely entitled to do. It's definitely not George's fault. I agree with George's assessment that it's probably a racing incident in the which he said in the pen afterwards. It's clearly for me a racing incident. I don't agree with the steward's take on it on this particular occasion. Just because it's the first lap, George has come from behind, he's trying to go around the outside of Lewis. Lewis is making his best attempt to stay right, but has essentially already committed to his braking point for Les Combes. it's definitely not George's fault, but I also think it's not really on Lewis either. So I would call that one a racing incident.
The stewards say that there were mitigating circumstances in that it was the first lap, and the rules stipulate that should be a 10-second penalty, but because it's lap 1, we're only going to give him 5, is what they said in their explanation.
Yeah, I know, but I think the reality of the scenario is that kind of thing will happen on first laps again in the future and won't be penalised. I think any other lap than that, if you run Hamilton into the side of Russell, then it's a penalty. But on that lap, especially with the way that the deployment was playing out, you heard the drivers talking about it in the cool-down room, how crazy it is for the drivers when suddenly they get a burst of straight line speed in the middle of the run to Les Combes. Suddenly you've got a driver on the outside of you, you've committed to your braking point, you've given him as much racing room as possible, and then effectively slide into the side of him or make contact on the apex. I still see it as a racing incident.
Okay, right. That's the contact. But what about where George says, I was swamped by 3 cars? What have we learnt about his problems with the car this weekend?
I think that's it. George's gripe post-race, and gripe's too kind a word for I think how he must be feeling, was actually, well, why was I in the position in the first place in the dominant Mercedes to be swamped by cars and then to have to be that close to make contact with Lewis Hamilton? Unexpected loss of deployment is the line from the team. George Russell said yesterday he has an astronomical lack of straight line speed. They thought it was driving style. He changed some things. That hasn't made a difference. The team are then scratching their heads. They are then searching and scrabbling for what it could be. And George was listing a number of things in the pen, wasn't he? He did then say today there is a fix for Hungary. But it seems the team is still scrabbling for an answer as to why the car is so different to the car in the hands of Kimi Antonelli.
I actually end up feeling a little bit bad about it from a broadcast perspective, because you look through the data that comes out of the car from George, and it seems so clear that as he makes his way through the middle sector here at Spa, he arrives at the final sector, and then Kimi has more deployment, and you naturally and that's been the difference throughout the whole weekend. It's a couple of tenths through Blanchimont. There have been some other bits and bobs depending on which session it is, but that's really been the difference. But then you talk to the team and you say, well, yeah, that would have been a perfectly acceptable explanation, but we promise you George has tried the things that we're asking him to do, and there are some things that he can improve with his driving, as with all the drivers, no doubt, and some ways that he can look at the way that Kimi's driving the car. But there is also a fundamental problem with the car which is affecting his straight line speed. That, as I believe he's alluded to earlier on in the weekend, is so multifaceted, and the reason it's multifaceted is straight line speed is energy in 2026 Formula One. So wherever you're bleeding energy into, if it's the air in terms of drag, if it's the bearings in terms of the rotational drag, if it's the engine not performing and not charging the battery, it's only ever going to look like a bit of deployment that you don't have at the end of the lap. And so actually it's easy to lay that at George's door, and I think that's what the team did first. But then you eventually look at it and you think, well, yeah, that could be coming from anywhere. And I think the team have been very benevolent and honest in saying, look, we've got a problem with the car, we don't know what it is yet.
You know how teams do often, though, say, look, there might be an issue with the chassis, let's change the chassis. So much of it actually is psychological, helping the driver, saying, Kimi had a new power unit this weekend. Could that be the difference? I'm kind of just agreeing with you, saying there are so many different areas.
The power unit's just the generator as well that charges the battery, so a new generator can't hurt, right? And as I said on air before the race, in days of old, in a situation like this, what you do is throw the lot away and build them a new car, right? You'd literally go, right, can't find the issue, make a new one. But obviously we live in a 4 power unit, 3 energy system, cost cap of, just over 200 million era of Formula One, where you can't just fire a load of budget into throwing the lot away and building them a new one. So they've got to actually chase down the realistic issue and try and sort it with this car, which is a problem.
Hungary next weekend is going to be fascinating for George because there isn't going to be the deployment issues that we've seen both here at Spa and at Silverstone. So if there is still the straight line issue next weekend, then I suppose it opens up another can of worms for the team as they search elsewhere for the problem.
But I think that could also be more of a headache for him because, as we were saying in our post-race show, it actually leaves the race far more wide open as to who could possibly win. I think Ferrari are going to be right up there. I think Red Bull could be right up there. The team certainly were looking forward to that race and looking forward on to Zandvoort as well. So it's no longer a case of, it's going to be Kimi or George. You now bring the Ferraris were strong here. They were strong in Silverstone. You bring other teams into the mix as well. So it's not going to be as clear cut for George that, it's P1 or P2.
It also kicks the ball down the road, Tom, because what he really needs is a 2-day test at Spa. That's what he really needs, with Kimi on the other side of the garage, to go, let's change the gearbox and see if it's dragging that. Right, let's change the rear wing, let's change the front. What he's going to get is a full Grand Prix weekend with all of its turbulence and around Hungaroring. And if he gets a good result in Hungaroring, then great, that's some points, that's nice, gets a trophy, takes it home. But, what happens when he turns up to Baku? And the problem is still there, but it's just been masked by the layout.
Alex, isn't it fascinating? Wind the clock back 20 years. Would these problems for George Russell be behind him? Because they would have just gone and done a 3-day test and changed everything. No budget cap. Or is it more fundamental than that?
I think that, firstly, if you're going to go back 20 years, it wouldn't have had nearly the data. So actually, there's a certain point at which you go off a cliff of, where whoever your team boss is, where Ken Tyrrell goes, you need to pull your socks up, mate, sends you, right? there's a certain element of that. So he can be thankful that they actually have got the data acquisition to understand the issue. Then there's a middle ground where you would have, but they'd have changed everything and gone testing and sorted it. A sort of, Juan Pablo Montoya, maybe Jacques Villeneuve era of Formula One. I mention them because they're the two former Grand Prix winners and champions we've been on this weekend with. So, there's definitely an era in time where it's just change everything. We believe in the guy. Send him with a new car and see. But neither here nor there issues are so often the case in racing anyway.
Do you think it's as simple as the guy needs a break? Bring on the August break for George Russell. Go and sit on a beach. Try and forget about Formula One for a while. Don't overanalyze data for once. Just go and chill out and he'll come back stronger in Zandvoort.
Yeah, I listened to the preview pod. I'm not just saying that because I'm on. I genuinely do every week. I really enjoy it. And it was interesting, the parallels we can draw to last year, albeit the gap in Zandvoort was only 34 points for Lando Norris to Oscar Piastri. But yes, with that summer break and then Piastri falling away and Lando Norris coming up before, and obviously then the denouement in Abu Dhabi, which was what it was. But yeah, does George just need a reset? You feel that the last break we had, actually, where the Middle East races should have been, did that give him too much time to think? Did that actually give him a chance to overthink his driving? He's already said to us, I'm thinking about driving rather than just driving. And I think we can all kind of relate to that sentiment in something we do where you're consciously thinking of something and therefore your output isn't never as good.
But look, the fundamental difference with this break is that he can't be in the factory because everyone's on holiday.
True, it's shut down, yeah.
He has to go to the beach. And I just wonder whether that will help.
Is he going to the beach?
How terrible for him.
Yeah.
George Russell sentenced to the beach. No, you make a very good point. Yeah, exactly. And these drivers have done a number of off seasons and a number of summer shutdowns where they will have trained their minds to shut down from Formula One. The reset, it can't do him any harm, can it, at this point? Because he's got to reset himself within 3 days now to go to the Hungaroring. And as you said rightly, Alex, yes, that may sort of paper over the cracks somewhat because it's a different track, a different circuit, but the problems may still lie within the car. And I don't know, it's tough to get into George's mind, but I think that was the most dejected I've seen him in the media pen. He was kind of at a loss for words at one point with a question about resetting and bouncing back. I don't know whether there was emotion. I couldn't quite see sort of the eyes from where I was sitting watching, but you felt that the weight on his shoulders was enormous.
When you see drivers show emotion in that kind of media environment. I mean, it obviously depends character by character. I mean, we're talking tip of the iceberg stuff. You know, a driver for whom you can see emotion in their face in the media pen is punching the walls of their room back in the team bus, or that's how it used to be for me anyway. You know, it's a strong front, you know what you need to say, you know what's required, and you're definitely not going to see as much emotion as there is. There are times, of course, when it breaks through, and you'll know very well, Tom, and many journalists have told me in the past, the moment you need to be talking to the drivers is straight out of the car and park firme, because that's when you get the real story. But there is intense disappointment, I think, an upset in how this season is going for George. And I think frustration because, you know, rightly or wrongly, whatever's wrong with the performance of the car or something, I think he earnestly believes that there's a problem with the car, and the team earnestly believe that too.
We're watching in real time a lifelong childhood dream he has had slowly moving further and further away from him. That must be... It's painful to watch, and it must be unbelievably painful within George, especially if, as we're seeing, there are factors like reliability and like perennial underlying issues with the car that are so out of his control.
Laura, you've worked in many sports, not just in Formula One. If you were managing George Russell right now...
I've worked as a broadcaster, to be very clear, not necessarily as a manager.
If you were managing George Russell,
sure.
what would you...
Try your best, George.
What would you say to him about the championship? Would you just say, mate, write it off? Forget about the World Championship. All that's doing is burying your mind in something that is confusing, and it's just exacerbating all of the problems. Forget about the championship. It's gone. It's gone. Look at your teammate. Forget about it. And then, do you think, from when you watch other sports people in other sports, do you think that's the sort of bottom of the trough, and then they can bounce back?
Very good question, TC. I think what I've learned from interviewing a number of different athletes in a number of different sports is that they so rarely say they are thinking about the very end result. Yes, of course they'll be thinking about it, but the World Championship is one thing. George Russell's got to get to FP1 in Hungary. And so I think the advice that I would give, and I think it's incredibly hard advice to follow when you are in a hole in the way he currently is to take it minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, focus on the process, and the results ultimately you would hope will take care of itself. Do your processes, everyone, whether that's training at home, whether that's your nutrition, your sleep, whatever element of your life, keep it the same. Do what you do, focus on the process, and ideally the result, therefore, takes care of itself. Control the controllables is the ultimate cliche, isn't it? But a cliche because it's true. That's all he can do at the moment. He will be working super hard on and off track. That's all he can do. So I think that's the advice I would give him. I don't know, as an athlete and as a person who carries emotion, whether that would be advice I could follow when you're lying awake at night trying to get to sleep at 2 a.m. I think your mind wanders elsewhere.
It's funny because with the phrase "think performance, not result," I'm transported back.
Sorry,
I'm transported back to visiting, and it's a pleasant transport, but only just because I'm transported back to visiting Hintsa Performance, who were the utterly brilliant McLaren associated performance school where a young Alex Brundle was sent to be bullied on a cross-country ski slope by a very, very non-conciliatory gentleman called Petri, who used to like to read my VO2 max score back to me daily. But they basically had it written on the walls.
Yeah,
you know, think performance, not result was everything, and you're absolutely right. He's got to control what he can control, and the challenge of that, unfortunately, is us. We are the challenge of that because we keep on making noises about what's going on, and everyone's got a theory. He has to turn up and answer the questions about everybody else's theories. So there's a little switch that has to go on the side of his brain, and he just needs to go glassy-eyed, answer the questions as best he can at the beginning and end of the race weekend, and then drive the car.
My advice to him, and you touched on it at the end there, is I would go full Mika Häkkinen in terms of don't say anything. Just don't say anything, because anything he says right now will get blown up by people like us. Less is more.
Yeah. And again, the other piece of advice is the media is like a pond. Every time you touch it, you make a ripple. You try and smooth out your ripple, you make 2 more ripples. And so every time you touch the surface, exactly to your point, Tom, you add yet another story, yet another narrative that interweaves with the others. I think Hungary was going to be a better event for him. I think he can put that aside. But what he needs to not do is allow any complacency whatsoever within, I'm sure there won't be, but within his engineering team, if the Hungary result is better, to prevent them working on this issue for him.
I was going to say, as a broadcaster, not necessarily a manager, when I'm asking the questions about, you're now 50 points away from the world title, for example, I'm so often met with the advice I would give George Russell, which is, yes, but I'm just taking it each day as it comes. So, and you get that across the board in all sports, and that is sports psychology 101. And it frustrates me so much because I want them to be drawn into the emotion and the hyperbole like I am.
Here are 35 words, so you'll go away.
Yeah, precisely,
yeah.
Exactly that, yeah.
Now, what of Ferrari? They came into this weekend a bit like they did Silverstone, saying, no, we're going to be well off here. We're going to be well off. And there's Charles Leclerc finishing pretty close to Kimi Antonelli. Yes, he was helped by the VSC, but the pace of the Ferrari this weekend surprised me. I don't know about you guys.
It surprised us in Silverstone as well, didn't it? And then we thought, they might struggle a bit more in Spa because it's it's a much more power sensitive circuit. The straights are longer. And you were saying that Fred Vasseur was worried about the race pace through the weekend as well. They were brilliant today. And yeah, their pace surprised me. And we often do, we point fingers at Ferrari strategy, sometimes rightly so when they get things wrong and it's inexplicable, and Ferrari fans out there are sort of infuriated by it. But that VSC, calling them both in, bam, bam, double stacked, obviously for Hamilton, a tougher day, but for Leclerc, that worked perfectly.
It fell for them, didn't it? Fell for them. Fell for some others as well. I think Piastri took that VSC. A few other drivers gained from it. It was in their window. They made the right call to take it. It would have been a pretty mad call not to take it if you put your reverse glasses on. What impressed me was the pace. It was only about 0.3 that Leclerc was sort of behind Antonelli, and then with the benefit of the overtake, Leclerc could stay in touch relatively well. A little bit cooler seems to help. I think we've uncovered a bit of a car tendency with Ferrari that in the warmer races they tend to struggle. In general, it's got a little bit of oversteer from the switch back in the mid corner. They're really happy, as Fred said after the race, with the chassis side of things. Get off the line well. It's got a lot of strengths. And again, in Hungary and, for example, Sao Paulo, which will come up, and so on and so forth, it'll be a strong car.
But we saw glimpses of their race pace in practice as well. Mm-hmm. When it was pretty warm, wasn't it, back on Friday? So Ferrari had another good weekend, and they're going to be mega in Hungary as well because
it was pretty warm.
So good,
but then you eventually had Hamilton dropping it in free practice with an oversteer moment from the mid corner onwards. And I think that is indicative of a Ferrari which they can do something with when it's cool in a little bit warmer temperatures, struggling a little bit more. That being said, they've had a way better weekend than they could have dreamed of. I think assisted by the fact Verstappen pits early to try to challenge Antonelli and then doesn't get the VSC, because I think Verstappen would have probably finished at least up there with Leclerc, if not in front of him. But they've had a strong weekend.
And both Ferrari drivers had incidents that were taken up to the stewards. Hamilton's one with George Russell, we've just discussed, the 5-second penalty. Can we talk about lap 8? Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. He wasn't penalised by the stewards for it. You called the Hamilton incident was a racing incident as far as you're concerned, Alex. What did you make of the Piastri-Leclerc one?
Yeah, I didn't agree again with the stewards. I think Leclerc needs to leave racing room. So if the rule is if there's overlap on the outside at all, you need to leave racing room on the way to a corner. We've seen big aerial accidents like that. I don't think it's a stern penalty for Leclerc, or even necessarily a penalty that meets with sort of like seconds or so on and so forth. But I think at least you're talking reprimand, from the stewards to say, hey, when you're going down into a braking zone and you're side by side, we've all done it. So what you do as the driver, and it's like Austria between the famous Austria incident between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen that we remember up at turn 3. What you do, going down into the braking zone, and because you're offline, you've got a driver outside you. You're so muscle memoried into taking the line which opens up the corner to the maximum. You then brake across the road in an almost natural way, because you're a bit like when somebody turns into a junction, they naturally swing out to go the other way. But you've just got pure muscle memory. You're trying to go over there. You normally turn in from the extreme edge of the track. Drivers do it naturally. Drivers do it on the first lap of a new track ever. They don't have to learn that. So you brake, you start looking in, your body starts naturally opening the corner. And if you're not clear that there's a driver outside you and force yourself to brake in a straight line, you so often crowd that driver off the road. It's why they have those extra little bits of tarmac down near the first chicane in Monza, for example, because so many drivers have been off there by being squeezed left that eventually that they just put a bit of tarmac there to keep them out of trouble. In this instance, the curb's relatively big on the way in, and you can't really stop on it otherwise you're going to go straight. Piastri puts his car on the white line, and Leclerc moves across the road enough to make contact. There is a victim in it because Piastri then carries damage for the rest of the race, so that's 4 or 5 tenths every lap then for the rest of Piastri's race. And I think the stewards should have done something to say, don't do that.
Do you think Piastri remains straight, or do you think he started to lean on Leclerc a bit?
It looks to me like he's on the white line. But I'm happy to have another look at it if you insist on. But my call in the moment, I've seen it twice. My call in the moment is Piastri's on the white line. But yeah, I mean, look, the stewards have more angles than us, and they have the onboards, and they have time and resource to do it. I'm sitting there with my telly and Laura Winter to help. And I basically, I didn't agree on that instance.
Okay, what about performance, Laura? Charles said after his win at Silverstone, I'm just taking it one race at a time.
There you go, and that's what they all say, isn't it? We get back to that old adage that cliche they fob us off with, Tom.
But do you think he'll be coming out of Spa going, yeah, okay, I've turned the corner with this car?
I hope so. He said, didn't he, I've made a philosophical change with how I am interacting with this car, and you could see what the other side of the garage was doing. I think to then go P1 and P2, yes, with caveats of, well, drivers were out of position and George Russell was, out of the race and so on, and they were lucky with the VSC.
Still a great drive. It's still a great drive.
You cannot take anything away from the fact that Charles Leclerc got the job done. And when Antonelli overtook him, we went, okay, bye-bye, Kimi. No, 1.9 seconds over the line. He hung on in there, and he kept it within that second for a number of laps. He put Kimi under so much pressure, he was violating track limits and was told, you've got to back it off. So I think, yes, of course he'll be taking it one race at a time. But I think, for Charles Leclerc, the pain that he was in earlier in the season is past him, and I think proof in the pudding perhaps at the Hungaroring, where we are expecting them to go really well, but it's obviously a very different circuit to the two we've just been at, so we'll see then.
He was on pole there last year, do you remember?
Exactly.
That extraordinary race. Look, what about Lewis then? He's always been such a clean racing driver, and yet somehow he finds himself getting dragged into things. Now, Alex has already said that the George Russell incident on lap 1 he doesn't think was Lewis's fault, but just suddenly you find yourself going, oh, okay, oh no, there was the incident with the pit lane. It's just sort of, it seems to go either brilliantly for Lewis at the minute, and I point us all to Spain, or there just seems to be a sort of spiral effect.
Yeah,
There's very little middle
unsafe
ground.
Release.
Yeah.
Obviously, then he hit the mechanic. All okay there, but that then obviously will be playing in your mind surely. And then he asks, "Well, did you have front wing?" And they said, "No, we didn't get a chance to." And so suddenly he's saying, "Well, now I can't turn the car." And then at the end, you heard, "I've done all I can with the wing that I had." So yeah, it seems you're right that sometimes the races can sort of spiral away from him a little bit. I was certainly feeling that last year as well in Ferrari with a car that he did not like and he did not enjoy driving. Now that he's much more comfortable, he's at the pointy end, that means that he finishes P4, not P11. But yes.
You know, Lewis has been outstanding at some points throughout this year, and he's silenced critics who've said it's almost time for him to go from Formula One. He's demonstrated he's still fast. I think within the environment he's in at Ferrari, the question I would ask is, does that aggro help? Which is, you know, when you say, well, the wing's not right now, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. What I've seen in teams in the past is you've got human beings on the pit wall, human beings in the pit lane, and yes, you know, drivers I also have a distaste for drivers being held aggressively to account for things they say when they're adrenaline fueled in the car as well. But what that does do is add an element of pressure to everybody, because nobody wants to be the person in the pit lane who fumbled Lewis's front wing, and then he will call out over the radio that was his limitation in this race. And you imagine an individual there sitting in the garage who's made the decision that with the penalty plus the stop, they didn't have the time, or the mechanic who's not been able to do it for whatever reason. That individual is then under significant pressure, and that pressure I don't think is positive in a group like a Formula One team. And I wonder if these kind of cascade effects that he gets in the races are because of that pressure. You know, you've got an intense group of people. Nobody wants to be the person who drops the ball for Lewis. He's, you know, an icon in the sport. He's come to Ferrari. It's a huge move. There's massive pressure still on making that move work. And I think that sort of intensity that follows Lewis around as such a big name that sort of transcends Formula One actually might be causing those cascades to happen in some way when it doesn't go right.
He'd already complained, hadn't he, about the strategy as well, saying he obviously wanted to be brought in earlier, right? Ferrari left them out long, and ultimately it worked out because there was the fortuitous VSC that they could pit under. But he was already angry about that after the collision. That's before he knew he had to serve a 5-second penalty, and then it was another one was the reaction on the radio.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you're a driver with immense experience, immense success, and tremendous gravitas. You know exactly how a Formula One team should run, and then you've got to make a decision about what you tell them.
And don't get me wrong, the resurgence of Lewis Hamilton has been one of my absolute shining lights of this year. It's
agree
been
on that.
Incredible.
But I think Michael Schumacher wrote the book on how to win with Ferrari, and one of the things he never did was criticise anyone on the team, whether it's the mechanic on the front wing, or Ross Brawn, the technical director. He never publicly criticised anyone.
Sure, and also, you know, what's important to understand is Lewis is not necessarily wrong. I mean, he's often not wrong, and he's usually right with the things he's saying. The question is, does he need to say that then? Publicly, and how it's managed. And I think that actually that could still be something that Lewis with Ferrari could lead to more performance for him, to understand that sort of, I mean, you know, Ferrari is a culture, isn't it? As much as it's a Formula One team or a car manufacturer.
It goes back to a question I think we all had when he signed for Ferrari, which is, who is the biggest star here? Is it Lewis Hamilton or is it Ferrari? The most winning driver with the most winning team. Is that a match made in heaven? Certainly in terms of the fairy tale, if he does indeed get the 8th title in red, and, you know, it's incredible that we're even talking about that this season. Or is that a point of conflict at times?
But what's interesting is if you look across the garage to Leclerc is not devoid of complaint either. You know, he'll tell him but I think it's something to do with the Lewis with an awareness of his own gravitas and the force of his own words,
The aura
and
of Lewis
the aura
Hamilton.
of him, and how it affects a team around him, which is a really hard thing, I imagine, for him to grasp when he's the individual. When he walks in the door and everybody stops, turns, looks, and puts their hand behind their back and go, Lewis is here. What, you know, that has an effect on a team, and it's a pressure and a stress.
Do you know, I think McLaren. There is a point to this story. McLaren did very well to get GP Lambiase, because if he was ripe for the picking to leave Red Bull, I think GP would have been the perfect person at Ferrari. Fluent in Italian, a brilliant engineer, completely fluent in English. Imagine if he was the person talking to Lewis Hamilton and was able to be the buffer between what we're discussing now, the gravitas of Lewis Hamilton and the rest of the team. I'm really surprised. If GP was looking for something else to do, I'm really surprised Ferrari didn't go and get him.
That would either really work immediately or really not work immediately, in my opinion, because when you look at the culture of Red Bull and the way that the drivers are brought through, you know, and the way that they hone the drivers through the junior series and bring them up through the ranks, it's very much along the lines of, you know, the driver is told what's required of them. Excellence is expected and they move forward. And then, of course, you get to the level that Max is at and you gain, you know, a certain autonomy. But GP, even with the way that Max delivers and the way that Max operates, still doesn't mind going, it's childish, Max, I don't like it, over the radio. I cannot imagine Lewis Hamilton tolerating that. On the radio, I think he would change. I think he would change what was around him if that was the communication too.
But I think GP's bright enough to work out how to get the best out of whoever it is, whether it's Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, or Lando Norris at McLaren, or Max Verstappen at McLaren for that matter.
It's part of the game.
Oh, Tom Clarkson.
It's part of the game. They all call themselves half psychologists, don't they? And it's so true. It's your best mate for the year, the person that you lean on.
I'd love to see it. It would be fascinating.
Now, we mentioned Max Verstappen, P3 today. Pretty quiet race. Now, actually, Alex, you said you thought maybe there could have been more for Max today if the cards had fallen a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's trying to put an undercut potential on Antonelli at the start, or was it lap 18, wasn't it? I think Max pitted off the top of my head. But you know, and then how do they know at the time, right? So then there's a virtual safety car, and he could have fallen so easily, have fallen into the group that pitted. That being said, I think that would have also not forced the pit stop from Antonelli. And therefore Antonelli would have taken the virtual safety car and you might have been status quo. But what that would have done, I think, is put Max still ahead of Leclerc.
Unpredictable car, that one, isn't it? When you think of where they were at Silverstone, they then had to take off the rotating rear wing, the Macarena wing, come here. That didn't seem to, by the way, slow them down much, putting the old wing on.
We asked, didn't we, Laurent, is that going to be a performance deficit? He said, I'm trying to remember the pre-race show. He said, yes, it might be, didn't he? Did he?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't seem to hurt them, did they? Did it too much? It's, again, a Red Bull...
Kept him out of the wall.
Yeah, again, a Red Bull on a knife edge, though, isn't it? On a knife edge. Turn up, Max Verstappen happy, yeah. You know, a nice toe from Isaac Hadjar, who did a brilliant job of it. Again, I said before the race, it's a little bit like doing the washing up. That you want to do it well, but you don't want to do it that well, do you? So you
You're always washing
you can't
up.
Can't have your mask in you
washing
again.
up.
And I think he's better than that, to be honest. I think you know he doesn't need to be there.
Isaac said after qualifying, he said, "I'm like Deliveroo." That's what he said.
Deliveroo, nowhere near that accurate.
Do you know what, actually, just about that toe? I mean, he really gained. I don't know what the numbers were exactly in terms of what a Max gained.
0.2, I think 0.2, 0.3 Max gained on the toe.
Mike, I don't know. It looked to me like Isaac had actually done bad washing up and that he let him get too close, right?
They aced it because, so he actually, I believe, I've looked at it a couple of times, I think he's working the systems of the car. So I think he's, you know, you've got the straight mode closure that comes before Blanchimont. Obviously with the straight mode closed, the car makes a bigger hole in the air, right? Because you're dragging the wings through. And then, you know, he actually uses a bit of energy, I think, through Blanchimont to give the perfect. It was genuinely a really impressive piece of precision driving. And I asked Laurent Mekies, who was naturally a little bit coy about it before the Grand Prix, how much of that did you orchestrate, or did you just leave it to them? I think they sorted it out themselves, but I mean, it was nose box to gearbox, wasn't it? Through Blanchimont there. Very impressive.
And Max said in the press conference after qualifying, if he had been too close, I would have just pushed him.
For fear of jumping the gun, can we just talk about Isaac Hadjar's performance today as well? I found it amazing that but it's so Isaac's character. He says that it's been instilled in him from his younger racing days with his father that nothing's ever quite enough. So P21 to P6. He saw the one stop and thought, no way, I'm going to do 3 of those, actually. A 3-stop, great strategy from Red Bull. And he still wanted a bit more. He thought more was on the table for him.
Well, and you say the car is on a knife edge. Well, hang on, Hadjar is able to get a tune out of it now, so it can't be that difficult to drive.
Yeah, but not every weekend. So some weekends will turn up, Max will be immediately complaining about the balance. Some weekends will turn up and Isaac will be massively struggling. So, and when I say knife edge, I'm talking about the setup of the car for the weekend. This weekend, we turned up in FP1, and by the end of FP2, Max is standing in the pen going, I'm happy with the balance of the car, and lo and behold, we get a nice performance out of them in qualifying. Max benefiting a little bit from the fact that Hadjar's sort of out of the running and therefore in a position to give him a tow like days of old. But yeah, I think it is still a tough car to set up.
Look, quick word before we go on McLaren. Laura, you said earlier, what would have happened if Lando Norris had started third?
I like asking the impossible questions.
Yeah.
Captain Hindsight
That's
over
why
here.
we have a simulation team, Laura.
Well, excellent, yeah.
They
Deploy
will do,
them.
almost certainly.
Yeah, just intrigued. I think he had brilliant pace. He was getting the job done. The McLaren had very good pace. He'd already put in one of the best laps he's ever done in qualifying to stick at P3. So clearly he had a lot of confidence and comfort within that car. I just think it would have been a fascinating fight. We know that he can start. Well, we saw that in Silverstone. I question whether he'd have taken the lead on lap 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing for McLaren is that is a totally elective change to the battery. That they've obviously not completely binning the race for Norris, because otherwise they'd have taken full sets of electronics, power units, everything, given him a massive penalty and had him right at the back of the field. So they obviously wanted some kind of a result out of him. Then they started him on the hard, but Norris realistically is still in the hunt. It's almost like they underestimated the pace that he would have from there. And actually starting on the hard was realistically his downfall, because then it put him out of the window for the VSC. Again, how could they have known? But even still, you know, that's a big roll of the dice from the gun for a driver in a quick car who's going to start, 13th, but it's just at the edge of the top 10. So.
Why didn't they stop him during the VSC?
They probably thought it was a bit too far away to get the medium tyre to the end of the race, and it was out of his window. They discussed it over the radio, and the original instruction to Lando was, if the VSC doesn't NG box, then they cancelled it, to which his response is, yes,
on,
we appear to be... We appear to be disadvantaged at this stage.
Not the word you used.
My good man, and I shan't proclaim I'm too happy about it. And that's what he said at the base of Eau Rouge, word by word.
I think he was capable of more than P7 today. He also had the slow stop, didn't he? When he did ultimately pit, he lost a lot of time on the ailing hards and then pitted, and it was a slow stop, and yeah, it just all kind of sort of tailed away from him. But I think up to that point he was having a very, very good race.
I'm fascinated by the gap between him and Oscar Piastri as well.
Me too.
Andrea Stella, team principal, said on Saturday evening that Oscar's driving style is almost too clean for these 2026 cars, which I thought was interesting.
It's weird the way that you have to drive them, and all of the drivers have said that, you know, charging into the apexes, because then you have this immense delivery of immediate power out. But then, for example, drivers who really get the hang of it are recognising that, for example, in Pouhon, in the middle of Spa, you have effectively 550, 600 horsepower. So then they're moving driving style to be driving a car that effectively has more grip than power. which is entirely alien for Formula One cars of a modern era. You have to be so open-minded with the way you drive the car. You have to be so flexible with your technique that some drivers have taken to it and some haven't. Even though in the previous generation of car, Norris was always a maestro with the energy system. I remember him, taking a podium, for example, in Austria by managing the energy systems of the car to deliver the fastest lap of the race right at the end. He's been brilliant with attack and defend in that way. And so his sort of PlayStation generation mindset towards managing the power unit and playing it like a flute it has sort of given him, I think, an edge in this era.
Well, guys, what a weekend at one of, well, certainly my favourite racetracks.
I think it's my favourite.
There's something magical about it, isn't it? Something magical about this. And you must have done many laps around here, Alex.
We tried to, for a short period of time, otherwise it just gets boring, tried to quantify how many hours. I've done Spa 24 hours a couple of times, so that helps. But
I asked him in a break or an interview during one of our shows, I said, how many hours of racing have you done around here? And I thought...
and I think I undershot it by a lot. I think it's approaching 500
We were doing some ludicrously quick mathematics and arithmetic. Our producer was counting us down to being back on air, and I said, I'll just say 300, okay, wouldn't you? It's about 300
that's
hours
just
of
how
racing.
professional we are.
Yeah, and that's how much prep we put into our shows.
Well, look, what about driver of the day? Now,
Hadjar.
You've stolen my driver. I thought they're going to say some of the top three, so I'm going to say Isaac Hadjar, and you've stolen it from me.
Right, well... You said it first, Alex. Why Isaac Hadjar for you? Why more than Antonelli? Why more than Charles Leclerc? Why more than Arvid Lindblad?
I just think it was a really impressive drive. Yeah, it fell for him, but there's a bit of to and fro that has to go on with the team to understand if the tyres can do what you're asking them to do. He had a great start as well, Hadjar, and a great first stint. And then brave strategy that no doubt he will have been involved with, and just plain driving the car, from the back where I saw him on the grid walk up to 6th position is an impressive effort in my book.
Gabriel Bortoletto.
Oh,
P8
good shout.
in an Audi. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Not
birthday.
Gabriel Bortoletto's birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
I'm sure we've told them where we're sitting, have we? Which is going to be very confusing for the listener.
Kimi's just thrown the cake at, I think, one of his mechanics. I don't think it's his dad from yesterday, anyway.
I was wondering if it was happy birthday for his dad, but it must be another one of the team members. And there is cake everywhere. They are running through the paddock.
Kimi's just raced out and he's now being chased by two people up the paddock. They're going up
running
the
upstairs.
ladder, up the staircase to the trucks at the top of the Spa paddock. And here comes Marco Antonelli, Kimi's dad, laughing. So we can confirm that the cake did not go in Marco's face.
Well,
it was his birthday yesterday.
I thought, as hire a journalist in the corner, we might get caked there. So I was ready to go and move.
Now, before we were interrupted, you made a really good point, Laura.
A great interruption, though. I'll take it.
Bortoletto, yeah.
Brilliant performance in an Audi. We've been saying the last few races they've got to start scoring points again. They're going to get out-developed. The race in the midfield, we're seeing Alpine and Racing Bulls at the forefront. They don't want to be in this no man's land or slip behind your Williams and your Haas and ultimately your Aston and your Cadillac. And I think great performance from him. Look, teammate Hulkenberg down in P13, not scored a point all year. He has had a lot of bad luck, a lot of unreliability, but for Gabby, I think it was a brilliant performance from a brilliant qualifying.
Now, Kimi Antonelli's back in the Mercedes motorhome. I think they got him.
Kimi Antonelli has been caked.
He's been caked. He's got his back to us at the minute, so we can't see how much cake is on his front, but he's holding his arms up, and there's definitely been...
Armpit. It was in the armpit.
Was it?
Yeah. Cake in the armpit for Kimi Antonelli.
Well, look, we're still on driver of the day.
You guys got a bright future
listener,
in commentary. You really have.
I was going to throw in Arvid Lindblad because...
Yes.
I mean... I'm going to cheat a bit and say driver of the weekend. I thought Arvid has been amazing this weekend. More cheering, and I think...
Stay at your seat, Tom. That's commentary, isn't it? It's as easy as that, right,
Only
Alex?
one driver to identify, which is
and That's Kimi saying thanks, everyone, and he's off to the airport. He has a rucksack on his back with the winning Pirelli hat that he wore on the podium. He's also got the Moët bottle that he sprayed on the podium.
A giant bottle of Moët Chandon.
And a lot of bags in his left hand. But Kimi Antonelli has left the building. It is confirmed. Shall I just quickly finish on Arvid Lindblad? Just what a guy. What a weekend. I mean, he had a little update that the team told me that his teammate didn't, that Liam Lawson didn't, but actually the difference between the two cars on the cooling system was worth about half a tenth, I was told. So negligible, and Lindblad just delivering time and time again. Well done to Arvid.
I feel we could keep going all night, the manner which we've been talking, but 1 point on Racing Bulls and Lindblad. I said it in our post-show. I don't feel that was a battle for P9, P8. They've got Solov waiting in the wings, cleaning up in F2, haven't they? And he's already been mentioned in Alan Permain's terms as the next in line, whether that's next year or in years to come. That threat looming will be closing in on one of those two drivers. So I think there is more at play when you see them battling wheel to wheel on track there.
And lap one up at Lake Com,
yeah,
side by side, heart in mouth. And that's a brilliant segue, by the way, Laura, because Alan Permain, the team principal of Racing Bulls, is my guest on this week's episode of F1 Beyond the Grid. He shares great insight into both Liam Lawson and Lindblad. So that's out on Wednesday, and you can watch our chat on the F1 YouTube channel as well. Well, is it time for us to do a Kimi Antonelli and leave the building? Guys.
I almost sang. To say goodbye. Yeah, no cake for me and no more singing. I'm done.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. Great chat. And for more reaction and analysis from Belgium, please go to f1.com, the F1 app, and at F1 on social media. And below this episode on the F1 Nation feed, Carlos Sainz and Batman, Gabriel Bortoletto, join Christian Hugel on F1 Explains to answer your questions about the sport. But for now, thank you very much for listening. We're heading straight to the next round, with the final race before the summer break taking place in Budapest this coming weekend. And we'll be back on Thursday to preview the Hungarian Grand Prix. So speak to you then. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.